welcome back to Iris After Hours. We are here at our pop-up podcast location. I said that on our last podcast because we're in Fremont at an Iris Live to Love conference hosted at this amazing church, Harbor Light.
Harbor Light.
Okay, yes. Yep. My guests are Pastor Terry Inman and his two sons, 2 of 7, Tim and Sam Inman. Yes, welcome, guys. Thank you for being here.
Good to be here.
People are trying to catch their breath. They think you said 7 sons, and you did.
I did.
Yeah.
It's literally, you had 7 sons.
Yep.
That's amazing in and of itself. I'm blown away just by that. You can just talk about that this whole
Tim
time.
is number 2 and I'm number 5. That helps. We have numbers.
And we just celebrated our 29th grandchild.
Which is a record. I've never heard of more than that. So congratulations. That's all I have to say.
You.
That's incredible, guys. And thank you for being here, and thank you for hosting this amazing event. You've been a part of the Iris family for how long now? What was your first connection to Iris?
Well, a long time. I met a gentleman, I think a lot of people probably that watch your program know, Randy Clark, and he suggested, I think it was in early 2000, that I accompany him on a trip to Mozambique to meet these people that were experiencing revival, and that people were being raised from the dead, and people were hearing restored eyes, lame were walking, all the stuff you read in the Bible. He said, if you ever want to see the stuff happen that happens in the Bible, you ought to go to Mozambique. I said, hey, sounds good. I've never been to Africa.
Yeah.
Let's go. So he invited, I think, 6 or 7 pastors, something like that, and then at the last minute called us all and said, I can't go.
So basically your host for this international trip bailed on you guys.
Yeah, so guys like Charles Stock, some of your listeners know him, and Tom Jones were on this initial trip. This is all of our first maiden voyage to Mozambique.
Voyage.
And none of us knew each other. We met each other in Atlanta in the airport on our way to Mozambique.
Did any of you have an awareness of Mozambique? Had you ever been? Any of you?
I had never been there.
No. Okay.
I had some missionaries that we supported in Mozambique. But, I'd never been there personally. I'd been in many other countries, but not Mozambique. Yeah. And I'd never been to Africa.
Yeah.
It was my first trip to Africa.
Wow. Okay. So you guys are all on a plane together. What were your initial impressions? What hit you first when you got there?
Well, I'll try to make this brief, but we got off the plane. And this could have been a combination of culture shock. I'm not sure what, but anyway, we got in the car. Wasn't even a car. It was, what do they call them? Those little buses. And it was something like that. Anyway, it was a rough ride, but we drove for 6 or 8 hours or something like that. Dirt roads and potholes and all kinds of stuff. And we finally got to, I think it was Beira or somewhere like that.
Did you go there right away?
Oh yeah. The minute we got off the plane, there's crusades lined up. We didn't even know what we were going to do there. But they had us scheduled to speak.
Throw you on a bus, send you to Beta. Got it.
So we get off, and we're at this place that we're going to stay for the night. I won't call it a hotel. It was just a place that we're going to stay for the night.
It was a location.
Later we named
it
the Condo and Dondo.
Okay.
Condo and Dondo.
And
that's another whole story. But anyway, we're sitting there in the evening. And we've already had this 20-hour plane flight and 8 hours driving and all this kind of stuff. And Roland starts talking about the life of missionaries in Africa. He starts talking about the culture of the people and what people are going through and how challenging and how difficult it is. And he's just being Roland, and he's just being honest, being real. Halfway through his conversation, I literally fell out of my chair on the concrete patio and just started bawling like a baby. And that's just not me.
Wow.
It's just like those 1 in 20-year deals where you just sob your...
So were you kind of like, what's happening to me? Like,
well, it was a combination of what I was hearing from his heart.
Yeah.
And now I'm in Africa. First time in my life. I dreamed about being in Africa, I think, my whole life. And now I'm here, and I'm hearing all this. And then the presence of God. The presence of God was just overwhelming. And I'm just laid out on this patio right there on the stones, just bawling, and then Roland just sits there like this, and he says, well, another one of those Western American pastors down for the count. Oh well, let's move on. He just keeps talking.
We were just talking. My dad can be a bit sarcastic.
Yeah,
a little dry.
Yeah.
In the midst of that going on.
So that was my introduction.
Wow. So, and you were a pastor at this point?
Yes.
Already?
Yes.
Had been pastoring for a number of years?
At that point, I think, I've been pastoring now for almost 50, so that would have been a good 35 or something like that.
So that was a marked experience for you. Did you feel like a different person after that?
Oh, yeah.
Did you come home? Did you guys notice anything different in him coming home, or an impact that trip had?
Wow.
Well, they were only 2 and 3 years old.
No, oh, were you?
That's not true.
Okay, I'm like, I don't know the dates.
Okay, tell him what God told you about if you give to Africa what I've given you.
Oh, if you give Africa what I've given you, I'll give you what I've given Africa.
Wow.
The Lord said that to me. And so I made several trips.
Amazing.
I probably made at least 10 or 11 trips to Africa after that in a 10 or 11 year period of time.
Wow.
I've slowed down a little bit. I've got some heart issues and stuff, and so those long journeys are kind of a challenge. But I could tell you my heart's in Africa.
Wow.
There's nothing more precious to me than those trips to Mozambique.
Wow. Can you tell me just a couple of the highlights for you?
Yeah, I don't want to do all the talking. These guys, Sam went on a
Yeah,
trip too,
I definitely
so
want to
we need to hear from him. But
yeah.
Of course, Heidi always gets you way over your head.
Yes, it's exhausting.
So I'm going to start right from the beginning. The minute we finally got where we were going to go, when we got to Maputo, she says, we get up early the next morning, and I'm still jet lagged, and she says, Pastor Terry, would you mind going with me over to the dump? And I'm thinking, oh, they want me to take out the garbage. Oh, sure, no big deal. I'll help you do that. So I get in the car.
Lower still.
It's just me and Heidi. We get in the car. We go to the dump. And all of a sudden she just takes off, and I see there's probably 10 or 12 people just coming out of the dump, and they're going to have a church service right in the dump. Oh, she said, I forgot to tell you, yeah, we're going to have a church service here in the dump. We have a church here in the dump. I go, oh, really? And this dump, well,
Yep.
this dump is terrible. It's
it's awful.
The word Sheol
it's intense.
in the scriptures talks about a burning dump. That's what it means. And I thought I was there.
It's piles
you
of garbage.
Yeah.
It's ash. It's fire.
You can't breathe.
Yeah.
And here I am, and I'm thinking we're just going to make a little quick trip, and she's going to have a church service. And they had a little radio, and they put on some music, and people start dancing in the dump, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I look down, and she's in the dirt.
Yeah.
And there is an elderly, well, he looked elderly. He was probably 30, but, in Mozambique.
Yeah.
Half his face was eaten away with some kind of skin disease. Mm. She gets down in the dirt. She puts her arm around this man, and she puts her cheek up to his raw cheek. Mm. And just hugs him and prays for him. And my mouth's dropping wide open. I'm going, where am I?
Wow.
And then she says to me, now, Terry, when we finish our little service, if you just walk down that road, there's people that will want to meet you. And I'm going, what? This road, you've probably seen it, is a road that goes down through the dump, and they carved it after years of piling the garbage up. Mm-hmm. The road just goes down like you're in a canyon between mountains, but it's mountains of garbage on each side. And the further you walk down the road, the darker it gets, till you're kind of down at the bottom of the dump. And you go all the way down that road and you come around. And as I started walking down the road, it gets darker and darker and smellier, and you can't hardly breathe. And then all of a sudden, people start popping up out of boxes and tin little roofs that they could find somewhere, and they just start coming out, and they're coming toward me, and they're reaching out, and they're trying to take a hold of my hand, and they want me to touch them. Excuse me. I'll never forget it. They just wanted me to touch them in the bottom of the dump. And Heidi knew. I didn't. And I did. I touched him, and I just tried to bless him. I was out of my element. I just thought, where am I?
That's amazing.
And I just touched the people that I could touch. And then I finally made it back around, and Heidi finally rescued me. We got back in the car, and we went home, and she says, welcome to Mozambique. Welcome to my world.
Wow.
That was just the beginning. There's so many stories, but that was the beginning.
Awesome.
I should have known.
You were thrown in there, in deep. That's amazing. What was kind of the trickle effect that had in your family and coming home, and how do you guys feel like you've been impacted just by the change or the effect that's happened in your dad or in the family? Or
I believe we were in. I think my family was in Ireland at the time that you guys were starting to go to Mozambique. Maybe we were in California preparing to go to Ireland.
Yeah.
It was. I was in ministry. It was so encouraging to see.
So you were in full-time ministry at this point, too?
Yeah, as a very young man.
Okay.
Tim was a missionary in Northern Ireland for 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And,
Amazing.
let me just throw this in there. We're a missionary family, pastor family, whatever. When Rollin was in China, or what it was they went from China when he was a child, about 2 years old. They went from China to, was it Taipei or somewhere like that?
Yeah, Taiwan. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, Taiwan. So when Rollin was in Taiwan, when he was about 2 or 3 or whatever, I was in Japan. My father was a missionary to Japan.
Yeah.
So there's just so many parallels when you just kind of think about where the Bakers have come from and where my heritage.
So it was in your DNA.
So
it was
now
in your
we've
heart.
got more missionaries. He's been in Ireland. Tim was a missionary in Mozambique and what's the country next door? Malawi.
Nice.
He was with YWAM.
Awesome.
In Malawi and Mozambique. Anyway, go back to your story.
You
Well,
guys
I was
are
just
in
saying,
Ireland.
we heard the stories. I think it was before Ireland. It was actually when we were in California. I was a children's pastor.
Okay.
But hearing the stories about people getting healed, just about what God was doing in Iris Ministries and in Africa, it was really inspiring, even to me secondhand.
Yeah.
I remember you told me you told me stories, and then I shared it with our kids in kids ministry. Just like, look what God's doing around the world, and he cares about you.
That's
so
awesome.
yeah, I would say it definitely had a big impact on me. And I know that for my parents, I saw that for my dad, it was a real refreshing thing. How you when you get outside of your everyday environment and you see you really need to depend on God, and then you see Him working in people's lives, and it's really refreshing. Yeah, so I think it was a pretty refreshing thing for you in ministry.
It always touched our church. We'd come back and just talk about what God was doing, and then people wanted to go. So then we started taking groups from our church.
Yeah, you kept going.
And in fact, one time our youth pastor went with a whole group of youth by himself. I didn't even go on that trip. So, it just
So it was a really meaningful thing for your church body.
Oh,
it was really far-reaching. That's so exciting. That's awesome. And you got to go.
Yeah, for me, I think hearing the stories and knowing what was happening over there with Iris and with my dad's trips, it was kind of the first time in my life that I was confronted with this truth that miracles are really still happening today. And that it's because God cares about people who really desperately need to be touched by Him. And I think one of those trips that you made, I was actually in Malawi with YWAM and hearing about what you were doing in Mozambique, and I was jealous. I wanted to sort of hop over there, which wasn't possible at the time, but it just planted a seed in my heart. And being in Malawi also planted a seed in my heart. It just made me realize that there are people that have such a deep need, not just for God, but just for felt needs to be met, that if you can just do a little bit, it makes such a big difference. And so it just planted the seed in my heart, and I just wanted to go. I wanted to see what it was all about. I wanted to meet Heidi. I wanted to see the orphanage, and I got to do that a couple years later. I went with you and Mom, and we went to Maputo and to Pemba, and I actually got to stay in your bedroom in Pemba since you weren't there, so welcome. Thank you. And I remember going out.
Please tell me about your prophetic dream. I just need that story.
I will. Leading up to that, I went on all of these outreaches out in the bush, and some of them were in the bush, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
You get on the back of a truck, and you're jam-packed with like a bunch of other people or in a Land Cruiser or whatever, and it's like...
These are not Land Cruisers like we have here.
No, they rip out all the
explain
seats and they and they put in these little benches that like 10 people sit on.
You're taking
right?
your life in your hands. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, you get out there and it's dark, and they put the movie on, the Jesus film on, and you start hearing somebody preach, and then pretty soon at the end of it, it's like, okay, guys, now go pray for him to get healed. And I was like, oh, Lord, there's so many needy people. And I prayed for, I don't know how many people, and I don't know if any of them got healed, but I just remember how overwhelming it was to be confronted by that need and those people, and just knowing that, Jesus, we need you to do something. And I'm probably not the only person who has been on a trip with Iris and felt like, maybe I'm not good enough for this. You know, maybe somebody else should be doing the praying. Maybe somebody else should be praying for this person. But God knew I was there for a reason, and it was a critical time in my life where I was trying to figure out who I was and what I was going to do next and with the rest of my life. And I had a dream.
Yes. Excited.
Sleeping in a comfortable bed that night, which there actually aren't a lot of comfortable
beds. Very few of those. True.
I woke up. No, I didn't wake up. I had a dream that I woke up. Was
there bed bugs in her bed? Because I've been in the bed bug
no bed bugs.
Quite a few times. Yeah.
I had a dream that I woke up, and at the foot of my bed there was this huge frog, like just staring at me, and that was it. That was the dream, and I was like, frightening. Yeah, kind of frightening, and not a normal dream. So I definitely thought this must be from God, and thankfully, we were on schedule to do a little fun trip the next day to do a safari, and Supreza was our driver.
Supreza, one of our heroes. We've done podcasts with him.
Awesome guy. You know, we got to know him a little bit that day. And my mom, who is always the greatest advocate for her children, pipes up and says, so, Supreza, interpret this dream for us. And I'm like, oh, should we be asking that? And so he just starts right into it. He says, well, a frog means it is time for waking up. And that was it. But
I love that.
That dream and that interpretation has really impacted me ever since. I mean, God just revealed things to me about the church in Revelation that he says you are basically half blind and naked and in the dark. It's time to wake up, you know.
Wow.
And so I just have this burning passion in my heart that it's for me that I need to wake up to the things that God has put in me and become who I am, and that the church needs to wake up to who we are, and and open our eyes to see what God has put before us. And I'm not going to preach a sermon, but
that's awesome.
That was, Iris was definitely part of that experience and part of the formation of my life, and now I'm pastoring in a little church in the middle of nowhere in California.
Where in the middle of nowhere?
Boonville.
Boonville.
You've heard of the Boonies? This is Boonville.
This is the capital of that place.
Yeah, it's actually it's a wonderful place. We love it there, but it's a place that God sent us to because our hearts were open to say yes.
Wow. Yeah. So you pastor a church there, and Tim, you pastor a church.
I'm assisting
my
dad here.
Oh, you're here.
He's our executive pastor.
That's right. Okay. You were in Ireland doing missions. Now you're here working here.
That's right.
Wow. So did you guys grow up? You obviously grew up in the church. Your dad's a pastor. Did you anticipate being in ministry yourselves?
Maybe a little, yeah. You know, there were times where I thought about it and thought it might be exciting, and there were other times that I was like, please don't, Lord. Please don't.
Yeah, totally.
You know, we never put an expectation on our kids to follow our pursuit or whatever. We've always prayed that they follow Jesus, whatever that means. And so some of our kids are in full-time pastoral ministry, others are not, but they have a ministry of their own in the workplace or wherever they are.
Yeah.
We're proud of all of them.
Yeah. So you weren't thrown off by it growing up?
No, I mean, one thing that's, to me, just really beautiful is the legacy that we get to be a part of. And I think that is just like a snapshot of the picture of God's family, because we have also 2 grandparents. Both of our grandfathers were pastors also. And so it just feels like, we're part of this legacy of our family, which is part of the legacy of God's family.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I always had in my head, that to whom much is given, much is required.
Yeah.
And I think Spider-Man has a similar little thing. With great power comes great responsibility.
Yes.
But growing up, I think as a teenager, really had an encounter with God where I felt called to ministry and international ministry missions, And one of the things that was really cool that I really appreciate about my mom and dad is my dad was pretty authentic in the pulpit. It was pretty real.
Yep.
And I remember him saying to the congregation, I'm not the holiest person in this church. I may not be the most spiritual person in this church. I am the person who God has called to lead. So he was pretty transparent about just kind of being a regular guy that God's called to be a pastor. I have friends, and we know people who were pastors' kids, missionaries' kids. They grew up with a lot of baggage because of expectations, maybe expectations put on them.
Yeah.
And also, I think a lot of pastors they feel like they need to be that, man of God in the pulpit, carrying the rod or whatever, like this more than human person, better than human person, And so I think because he was just a pretty real guy in the pulpit, we didn't feel like when he came home and he was tired or whatever, just human, we didn't feel like he was faking it.
Right.
It never felt like he was being a hypocrite.
Yeah.
And I have friends that have had the other experience and have had to wrestle with that. Well, my, feeling like that their parent who was in ministry was not the same person at home as they were in the pulpit or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that was a real positive thing for us. And so then when we did feel a call, it wasn't a negative
Right.
thing.
Yeah, you're excited about it.
Yeah.
Were there challenges in being raised in ministry and having a big family in ministry?
Yeah, I'm sure.
You want to ask the 2 different questions? No.
Oh, we were always broke.
Yeah.
I'm sure there
Not
were
many kids.
Challenges. I'm sure there were challenges. Some of them we probably didn't know. I probably didn't know about because I was one of the younger kids. Like, we lived in some places that might have been kind of rough. And but when I was a kid, I always dreamed of moving there when I got married and had my family, not knowing what it was really like because I was kind of sheltered,
We won't mention any particular cities.
That's so
We won't
sweet.
We
name
did live in
names.
the hood for a while.
No, but yeah, I just think that there were challenges, but you don't know what it's like to be an only child when you have 6 brothers. So we just knew what we knew, what we grew up with.
Yeah.
And it was there were great parts to it that we loved, and we had a lot of wrestling matches.
Yeah.
We slept on the pew in church a lot, or
That's
crawled
classic
under the pews.
move. Yeah. That comes with the territory for sure.
Heidi was talking about adoption and how 17 kids that are part of your family, and 2 of you that are theirs, and the other 15 are. And that she challenges all the pastors in Africa to adopt children and so on.
Yeah.
Sam and Crystalyn have, it's 4 of your own now, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're.
He's trying to keep track of the 29. Who
You know
goes
what,
to who?
I go to sleep at night rehearsing the names of my grandchildren.
That's incredible.
Some people count sheep, and I just kind of go through the list of names. Anyway, Sam and
Great.
Crystalyn had twins, and one of the twins unfortunately passed away when she was how old? Sam?
4 months.
4 months old. Cribbed in. And it was a crushing thing. And this is not too long ago. This is a few years back.
Wow.
Anyway, and now they have taken into their family a little boy is he 2?
Yeah, 2.5.
2.5 as a foster adopt. child.
Wow.
And he's the same age as their other boy that was born after the loss.
That's incredible.
So it's almost like they have twins again.
Yeah.
So
wow.
he's doing what Heidi says we need to do,
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah. We're pretty proud of our
You
kids.
guys are amazing. Yeah, I love it. I love it. And what are you most excited about 2018? It's a new year. You guys are all in ministry, but it's a brand new season. What are you most excited about?
Well, I'll speak first since you guys are hesitating. I'm most excited about doing ministry with Jesus' love, because I feel like I've been struggling in ministry with feeling like I need to make something happen, right? Like I think all pastors, everyone in ministry can relate to this, that I need to do a little bit more, I need to work a little bit harder, I need to figure out what it is, Jesus, that you want me to do before you'll break through. And being at the Live and Love conference Live to Love, conference this week, I've just really got what I think I needed and heard what I needed to hear, which is that you can only be who God made you to be. And the better you do that, the more fulfilled you're going to be, the more you can walk in the Spirit and just live in His love. And then people are going to naturally experience it through you just being you. So I'm kind of excited to go home and test that out.
Nice.
I was kind of hacked off when Sam left here. He was on our staff and goes up to this little community, and I'm trying to convince him it's probably not a good idea because there's like 1,200 people in the whole city. Half of them are migrant farm workers. The other half are farmers, and those people farm marijuana and wineries, and then there's a few crops of wheat for beer. There's a beer company in town. So
wine, marijuana, and beer crops.
That's the whole economy.
Cider. There's cider too.
Oh,
Apples
cider?
for cider.
Apple cider. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm saying to Sam, these folks don't want to go to church. I mean, this is tough. And he went to a little church. There was a building, but there was nobody there. Maybe 3 or 4 people that were left. And
Wow.
One of my friends who works in our denomination talked him into it. I was pretty, saying, Sam, but you know what? God spoke to him, and already the church is growing, and they're learning to serve that community. And finally, the Lord just spoke to me, and He said, if it's okay with you, if I just sent Sam there for that one little boy that they have adopted out of the foster care program,
Did you
would that be
adopt
okay
him
with
out
you?
of that community?
Well,
For the one.
He's our foster boy, so we have
Right. Did you foster him out of that community? Yeah. Wow.
But I mean, isn't that like going for the one?
Yeah, I love it.
So
That's incredible.
Grandpa just shut up and put up,
Was that an easy decision for you and your wife? Was that something that...
It's something that's been on our heart for years, and actually the story goes back to Africa, to when I was in Malawi. I was walking down the street one day in Blantyre, which is like the sort of commercial capital of Malawi, and that's where you see like the haves and the have-nots right there on the street, right?
Mm.
And so I was going to the bank to get some money out, and as I leave the ATM, I see that there's a beggar boy just playing in the street. I can't remember what it was. He probably had like a bottle cap and a little stick or something like that, playing in a puddle. And the security guard from the bank walks over to this boy and just gives him a swift kick and throws him off and says, "Get out of here," because he didn't want him affecting business.
Mm.
And I just stood and watched that, and it broke my heart. And something inside of me connected with him, not just because I'm spiritual, but because at times in my life I felt like that little boy, a little bit overlooked,
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought it wouldn't take much to change his whole world. And ever since then, I've just had a heart for kids and for orphans.
Wow.
And I always tell people now, because they ask me, it's adopting and foster care in America is so much more complicated than it should be, but it's probably good because it makes it safer. But I just tell people, if somebody came to your doorstep today with a child and said they have nowhere to go, can can you take them in? You would probably say yes.
Mm-hmm.
So we just need to realize that even though it looks different, all over our country, there are kids on your doorstep that need you to say yes to them.
Come on.
Yeah. That's awesome. So good.
Just
so necessary.
Just so you know, Inman men don't ever cry.
I love it.
Except
I love it so much.
What's going on with you?
I love it. Tim, what about you? What are you excited about
for 2018? It's a privilege to live in this community, here in the Silicon Valley in Fremont. It's a wonderful place where there's people from all over the world, all over Asia, a lot from Asia, Europe, Africa, South America, North America, and I feel like we're 10 miles, probably about 10 miles from Facebook headquarters. Google's around the corner. The eyes of the world are really focused here, and it's a great place for God to do a great work, to shine bright all over the world. And I feel like He wants to shine through us. I feel like He wants to shine through Harbor Light Church, through this congregation in Fremont, and the churches in the Bay Area, and really for sort of stand up and be seen in the community, to be noticed for our love. And there's people really have a craving that's not being met for community here. There's people that are doing incredible work. There's geniuses, there's great professionalism, there's really a lot of really wonderful things about this area and what it produces. But I think there's a real need for community. So I'd love for us to be a part of that solution, and to really shine bright, let the Lord shine bright through us in that way. And then, get the attention of the world, for Jesus. So.
Awesome.
Amen.
Love it.
Well, for me, obviously we've talked about family, and I fathered 7 sons, and I'm pretty proud of them and proud of that. And I've fathered many, many sons in the ministry and daughters in the ministry that are pastoring in various places and around the world. And I look forward to putting even more energy into that. Even in our own church, we're going through this transition of really raising up the next generation in leadership and worship and in so many ways. And that's what really has thrilled me about the conference that we're hosting right now with Iris Ministries, is that our sanctuary, which seats about 2,000 or so, has just been packed with young people for this conference.
Yeah.
And they are hungry, and they are just so hungry for God. And they need fathers and mothers. They really do. This generation really needs to be fathered. They need safe, loving, holy fathers and mothers.
Yeah.
And so I'm just looking forward to seeing God bring us many more children and grandchildren in the larger body here. And like Tim said, from a very diverse population. We're about 65% Asian in Fremont.
Amazing.
And that's kind of divided between typically Chinese, there would be Korean and Japanese and so on in that mix. And then the other half, Indian, from India. We've a lot of people from India are coming into the Silicon Valley, engineers and so on.
It's awesome.
And years ago I said, Lord, make our church really represent the demographics of the city, of the way it's changing. And that's the way it is in our church now. And we're some of the last white guys in the pew here. But anyway.
Love it.
And they just tolerate us, But let me just say something about the folks coming from India. The gifts that God brings from these different cultures to our church has really given us new life.
Yeah.
The Indians, for instance, they know how to pray like nobody you've ever seen. I mean, they're teaching me how to pray.
Yeah.
The folks that are coming from the Philippines, they have such servant hearts. You just can't believe how they serve. It's just amazing. And I could just go on and on with all the cultures and what they bring from the gifts they bring from their culture to us.
It's a gift.
It's given us new life as a church. I'm looking forward to more this coming year.
2018, love it. Thank you guys for being here, for sharing, for being so vulnerable and open. And it's been awesome to see just a glimpse of your story. Real quick, rapid fire questions. Favorite movie? Favorite movie?
Favorite movie? Oh my goodness.
Field of Dreams.
Nice.
All right. Just watched that again. That's a good one. Probably something. Okay, I'm gonna say this. Don't want to say it's my favorite all-time movie. I don't know.
Yeah, that's
hard. But
a
really neat movie is Signs.
Ooh.
Because it's a very spiritual movie.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, so it's a bit intense if you have kids or whatever, warnings.
Warning. I love Signs.
But yeah, it's got a great message to it. So if you haven't seen it,
love it.
What's that Irish movie that I like so much?
Waking Ned Devine. That's a top.
Waking Ned Devine.
That's
That's
top.
my favorite movie.
Devine.
Waking Ned Devine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't
Nobody
seen
knows
that,
what
but
movie is. It's probably a good thing.
I might look into that.
It's definitely a good one.
Does your poor mom ever get to watch like romantic comedies, or does she just have to do that on her own time?
Well,
you guys watch some Hallmark movies.
You know what? The first movie we ever went to was Sound of Music.
Aww.
Because movies were a sin when I grew up. You didn't go to movies.
Oh.
Movies were a sin because going into the theater was a sin.
Oh no!
And so we violated all that when I went to Bible school and I was dating. And
thank goodness.
We went to Sound of Music. I felt guilty the whole time I was in there.
Sound of Music too is like the sweetest movie.
That was our first movie, and my wife loved that.
My husband loves that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
There you go.
It's solid.
Sound of Music.
Solid. And your Ned Devine. I'll look into that.
That would be a one to watch quickly. Yeah.
Okay. If you had any other profession, what would it be? Maybe we'll end on this one actually. Astronaut, figure skater.
Oh, I started out teaching. I taught junior high for a while. I thought about counseling, and boy, now I'm really bad at counseling. After about 2 minutes, I just say, "Get well now."
Amazing.
But,
no patience for it.
So I'm trying to think. I don't know. I just think you're not satisfied unless you're doing what God.
You love what you do.
Planned for you to do.
Solid.
I don't have any alternatives.
Love it.
I love programming, and I do it as a hobby, and we also use it in ministry too because we have a club for kids where we teach them to code here in the community.
Nice.
As an outreach to the community.
Coder Dojo.
Yeah, Coder Dojo, Fremont Coder Dojo.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's a lot of fun, and families come in. A lot of Hindu, Muslim, come in from all backgrounds, and we get to just serve them that way, serve our community, which it's a great opportunity.
Tim was writing code when he was 5 years old.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't know, it's kind of like putting together a puzzle. My brain likes it,
That's
so
awesome.
I realized, I thought
You're
about...
in the right spot.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's one of those things I get to do as a little bit of a hobby, a side thing.
Cool.
I know what Sam's going to say, farmer.
All right, farmer.
I should change it just to spite you.
You were right.
I'm going to say some sort of pioneering, okay? Homesteading. Maybe, how about this?
Not
on
farming,
another
homesteading.
Planet. Homesteading on Mars.
Ooh,
there
that
you
could
go.
be a possibility soon. I love it.
I'm looking forward to that possibility.
Yeah. Oh, my husband's super into that stuff too. I feel like we're always looking it up. Mars. One day. Thank you guys for being here. It's been amazing.
Thank you,
I love that you've hosted our Irish family too and been a part of it for so long. And you guys are amazing, and you've been so real and inspiring. And I hope you guys have enjoyed it. You can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, and if you have comments or questions you'd like to hear us ask, leave them in the comment section under our Iris Global channel. And until next time, bye guys.
This podcast is presented by Iris Global. For more information or to support the work of Iris Global, please visit us online at irisglobal.org.